Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome into Unanchored Boston with Bob Lobel. I'm Mike Lynch, and as always, we are brought to you by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. And where? We're in New Hampshire, of course, in the great George Gray, the big wheel we call him, at George Gray's Lexington Toyota 419 Mass Ave in Lexington, where they still are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Lexington. All right, boom, we start the show. I always hand it off to the senior member of our crew, Lobel, who does the full introduction of you. So, Robert, take it away.
Well, Christopher, it's great to have you here. I don't know where to start, Boomer. Here's where I'll start. All kinds of awards, but it was VIT in Hartford, where you started as a weekend anchor. Newmeyer also was at VIT in Hartford, and that's when I read that, I really goosebumps came because Numi was a dear friend and a great fan of the Hartford Whalers, and I know you were a season ticket holder, and you went to Brown, and you just never left the area. I guess it was some kind of geographical issue. You couldn't leave Rhode Island, Connecticut, or whatever you had, so you ended up being the face of ESPN. Seriously, you were at that place for a long time, and during the time it became the go-to place for sports. But I'll just say this, Boomer. I'll say this. In my heart of hearts, I believe as the greatest sportscaster as you was, sports just the vehicle for your entertaining talents. You were an entertainer. And an entertainer first, and sports was the vehicle for you to express yourself as an entertainer. That's my psychological theory of Chris Berman and why he was so successful. Sports was great. It wasn't first. The entertainment was the first. And I don't care. I don't give a shit. Entertainment is the whole name behind sports. Okay, I'm done, Lynchy. You can take it over for the rest of the program.
Boomer, it's all yours. Take it away. Lobel, I thought Lobel was going to talk for the entire time, but he's going to let you have a couple of minutes.
Oh, my
God. Well,
listen,
here's the thing, fellas. I just realized you guys might have been in this business a couple of years, too. So whatever vesting we have on this show, it's better than Napoleon putting his hand in there. I love being with you guys. I watched you before you watched me. Why don't I leave it at that? I don't know if entertainment was first. I think love of sports was first, but I know, Bob, that if we just lay sports out there and say 3-2 and that's it, okay. But we all like it because it gives us a break. We're interested every night who won, who lost, why. We have fun. We're not facing real stuff. And God knows in the Boston or New England area, sports is as king as it ever was. And always, when you guys were on, I love that you were rivals. But what people need to know about those of us who've been in the business, I was never opposite you guys. I mean, really, but we're all friends. We're all in this because we're all speaking to the same people. So it's my long-winded, which I can do. Remember, I hosted the draft for 10 hours a day. We're all in this because we think similarly, and there's utmost respect to you two guys. Nice being with you.
That's great.
Great to have you, Boomer. I mean, you are, you just signed a contract extension, which is going to take you to 50 years, right?
Yeah. They're going to give me a gold-plated Mickey Mouse watch since Disney, Disney's our benefactor, if you will. And I'm looking forward to that. At 50 years, I mean, when you're 24 and Bob brought up, I came over from VIT Newby Station in Hartford in October of 79. I mean, I was, like I said, 24, had the good late 70s mustache, I mean, I'll leave it at that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I have to tell my kids that was okay at the time. It's a little shaky, but 50 years, one place of business, that's from our grandfather's time, right? Like 50 years in a firm, right? And hard to believe. I pinched myself. I know where all the bodies are buried there, and I'm glad they're letting me stay on so I don't have to tell anybody.
Boomer, let me ask you this. You're an established station, VIT in Hartford. ESPN is 1 month old. 1 month old. You jumped to ESPN in 1979. There had to be a lot of butterflies because it had to be high risk going to a fledgling network.
Well, yes, but no. Now, Mike, if I was, let's say, okay, so Bob, you're 10, 11 years old. Let's say I was 34, not 24. I had a 2 and a 1 year old, like maybe George Grant did. You remember, George, and he came over from Channel 8, New Haven, but the news anchor, that was a big risk for him. For me, 24, I was just the weekend guy, 2 days a week. That was not even 5-day. It was the first television opportunity that I had to do sports full time. I was on radio in Waterbury, and I got the TV part-time gig, $23 a show, by the way. So you're wondering why. But don't worry, ESPN signed me for $16.5. So it's not like, but the point is, it was not a risk at 24. My dad, remember, you guys know, and maybe a lot of our viewers or listeners know, cable in 1979, 1980, 81, is it going to make it? What is it? Not even ESPN 24-hour sports. Cable. Why would I spend $20 for this box on top of my TV, where if I'm in Boston, I get, 8 channels already, including 38 and 56 and maybe a public, so there's 8 channels. What am I spending $20 a month for 36 channels? I got to sleep. Can't tape any of these shows. 1980, right? 79. I got to sleep. I got to eat. I got to go to work. Why would I pay $20? Think about what we pay now. So long around answer, it wasn't a risk for me. Single, love sports. I lived here within a half an hour of where they were offering me a job. Why wouldn't I try it? My dad goes, what if they don't make it? I said, well, if they stay on for a year or two, and I'm on every night for half an hour, even though it was 2:30 in the morning, which is 11:30 in San Francisco, okay, and 9:30 in Hawaii. Let's make it clear. But even if I'm on every night and then it goes dark, I get 30 minutes a night, high pressure local like you got or I was doing is 4 minutes and then 4 minutes, right? So I get more in a night than I would in a week. I said, Dad, if it stays on, I'll find out if I'm good enough to make it in this business. It was a no-brainer, really, Lynchy, at 24.
Good answer.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I understand that, and you're close to home, and it's just I can see where it would all work. And I remember Dan Davis going down to the same operation. And I remember ESPN too when that first came on. I said, "What are they doing?" I'm sitting in an office in Boston with a cable box. What the hell is ESPN 2? Who's Susie Colbert? What is this all? What is Oberman doing? So it was all, it was. You're right, Chris. It was a new experience. Also from our side of the camera, we're sitting there looking. What is this operation going on at ESPN? Oh, don't worry about it. It's just. But damn it, it became important, really important, and wealthy. Really wealthy. And I said, why are they in Bristol, Connecticut, for crying out loud? I'm sure they can ask themselves that question now every day. But there's just, it's become a whole, as you know, it's become an industry unto itself, as Amazon, on and on, as it's grown. It's amazing. And you did the right thing. By God, you did the right thing. You tell your dad, your dad knows it now, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's gone, but he knew it. He was for me anyway, but that makes sense. We could have been a parking lot in 2 months too. Who knew? We only had 70, 80 people back then at the very start. But there's a camaraderie with us. Anybody who was there in the 80s and 90s, really, that if we see anyone because it's college, but it's past college. In other words, now you're working together in your 20s or your 30s in most cases, putting some building blocks together, which became something. I don't mean now. I mean, even by the mid 90s, ESPN2 was 93. So we had two stations then. But, if you love sports, here's the beauty of from your side of the camera. If you were in our chair, as opposed to yours, which is great. I mean, and my God, sports in Boston, hello. We all tuned into both of you guys all the time. We got to cover everything. No, we don't have the rights to the Super Bowl, the World Series, or the NCAAs. Well, we did a lot in the very early, but you know what I'm trying to say. But we got to not only report on them in depth, but also got to go often. I went to all these Super Bowls and World Series. We didn't have the rights, but before and after the game, you look to us to add on to a national audience what you would just watch on TV or maybe listen on the radio. So that was a real plus. I realized that was a bonus that I didn't know by staying it would offer all of us. That, yeah, go ahead. Stanley Cup Finals, I may not have gone to too many of them, but I went to some. Whereas normally you wouldn't unless the Bruins were in. You know what I'm saying?
How about major golf events? How about U.S. Open golf?
Right. I did a lot of
them
them.
off the PGA.
Loved it. I mean,
yeah, of course.
I mean, you guys would too. It just was a different opportunity. For a while, the audience wasn't the same as yours, but that wasn't the point.
No, it wasn't the point. You're absolutely right. We know what our audience was. We know what it's like to be a Boston fan and how to tap into that soul. On the other hand, no, you have to be worldwide leader. You have to be bigger than that and understand what that was. But let's get more to the personality part of Chris Berman, which really, I think, drove your success. That you became the face of ESPN, whether it was the ABCD Calam, you had so many great ones. How did that process work, Chris, in your own mind, if you had to analyze yourself when you saw something and then you came up with a nickname, and whether it was rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, what was what drove that engine?
Well, to be honest, and most people who know me know that I'm dead. I'm not fibbing in this. It all happened organically? In other words, okay, here's something happened in sports, or as long as we get the facts right first, 3-2, and somebody hit a home run, okay, in the bottom of the ninth, blah blah blah. I'm on at 2:30 in the morning. In the early '80s, there was not video. Maybe the Yankees in New York were on 5 times a week, but there was Kansas City 5, Seattle 2, and here's a panel for 45 seconds. Well, George Brett can only hit the home run so many times, right? So I then believe, and Bob Lee, who's a great professional, totally different than me, but he's him, right? You owe it to the audience to be yourself in giving the info. But if I were to do nicknames or rumbling, bumbling, or the Raiders or whatever I ended up organically doing, to be noticed, I think I would have fallen on my face. Because if you do that to be noticed, you're doing it for the wrong reason. Now, if you're doing it to have fun with, not at, with. So I threw out, I'll give you this story. The first couple of nicknames were, April 80. That was my first baseball season, if you will, 80 or May 1980. And one or two of them at 2:45 in the morning. I know that's my shift, and there are people that work the 2 or the 3 shift. If you're working at 2:30 in the morning, you're not really 100% anyway, right? So either, and you guys certainly remember these players, and I know they date back to my time at Brown, where we used to screw around and give nicknames to some of the players, reading a box score. Heaven forbid anybody does that now. It was either Frank Tanana, I called him Frank Tanana Daiquiri, or John Mayberry. Remember him? John Mayberry RFD. They came out. I went to commercial. I got in my ear our little IFB, our little earpiece, and I heard from the producer, "What was that?" And I went, "I don't know." Like, honestly, it came out. It wasn't, okay, this is the night I become Chris Berman. No, it came out. And it was, but the camera people, both, six people putting this show on, 2 tin cans and a string. They were laughing. Now, not all of these paintings are Rembrandts, fellas. Some of them are finger paints. But, here's the bottom line is I thought we were reviving a lost art in baseball of the nickname right from the print era way back before us.
Shoeless Joe.
I've had young kids come up to me, not lately, say, you invented Babe Ruth. No, I didn't really. I can't take credit for that one. Well, then you must have invented the splendid splinter. No. I didn't really say, hey, kid. No. But none of them were derogatory. They all were either a play on a name. They could have been food, a song, or in the case of the best one, Bert Be Home by 11. The beauty of that one is you don't have to know he was a pitcher or in the Hall of Fame or he pitched for the Twins or the Pirates or that he had the best curveball this side of Sandy Koufax. All you had to know as a kid, you heard it, and as a parent, you said it. You didn't have to be Einstein to figure out what the hell it was. So those things, it really was organic. Why they worked, it's a game everybody could play.
Bert, how about John tonight? Let it be Lowenstein.
Yep.
One of the great ones, the Orioles.
Yeah, the Lowenbrow beer. See, but when's the last time we had one of those? If we drank one, we'd be dead. It has botulism in it. The Boston one that I liked at the very end of his career, and Fairweather loves this. Billy Fairweather, our great friend, producer, the greatest bar. We could go on and on, Dirty Water TV, and work with you, Bob. And I know Lynch, he's known you for a long time. The one that I finally could use, he was an all-star player with Cleveland, obviously. But he came to Boston at the end, Carlos Baerga. I could finally use it. One of Carlos, one of by land, 2 of by sea, 3 of Baerga. I could finally use it when he played with the Red Sox.
And how about, some of the other phrases, he could go all the way. Back, it's gone. I mean, just like the nicknames, it just rolls off your tongue with no rehearsal, just entered your head?
He could go all the way was kind of a tribute to Cosell, halftime Monday Night Football, which, now you say Howard Cosell, no one remembers, but we sure do.
Yep.
He was great at that. Back is an interesting one for a baseball historian. I'm not trying to steal stuff at all. So it's in the mid-'80s, and I'm driving home one night, and remember how we used to have those sports albums? Like, I still have The Impossible Dream, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. Carl, we all, right? And we have these albums of great calls in Major League Baseball history. And one night I'm driving home. I don't know why I heard it. They played Red Barber calling a catch by Al Gianfrido in the 47 series against Joe DiMaggio, which kept alive a perfect, it wasn't a perfect game, but no hitter, whatever. And he goes, Mark, there's not Red Barber's. I didn't steal it. He never said this. He was catbird seat, right, fellas? So back goes Gianfrido, back slowly, back. He makes a one-handed catch against the bullpen. Then he says, "Oh, doctor," which was
doctor
thing. I'm driving. I went, you know what? on a home run tomorrow night, I'm going to try back. And it became certainly useful. And I'll tell you what was really helpful. In the 15 years where I did a lot of games, maybe 30, a game a week, baseball, it covered my butt on a ball in a park. I'm in a different park every week. I don't know how the ball carries in Cleveland or in Colorado, you do. But you know what I'm saying, Kansas City. And you go back, and so you change it to the left fielder. Back goes Jim Rice, back. He makes the catch, covered my ass in case, oh God, it's not a home run. He caught the ball on the warning track. I went, this is great. I just saved my butt calling a game, and then I can wait to see what the result. If it's a home run, I'm a genius. If not, he went back, but he caught it. So it was very useful.
Any favorite events, any special one-time events that you can go back and say, and you tell your kids, this was the best one I've ever been to. This was the most exciting, or this one, or I loved it more than anything that I can remember. It's kind of like this year's Masters, one of the great sporting events of all time. What's up in your head about what that might be?
Well, I'll answer only if then you guys give your answer, because I'm anxious to hear that too. So something that not I was at, because I was at a lot. But the number one, it's funny, we're not really talking football, but I'm going to go to a baseball game that I was fortunate enough to do with Buck Martinez. The night Cal Ripken passed Lou Gehrig, Bob. So, September 6th, 1995, the baseball had been strike the year before. People were pretty lukewarm to it, even in September. I don't have to explain to you guys what that meant. It was a record 14 and a half years. We never miss a game. I mean, really. And when I hit a homer in all these games, but in Baltimore, it was a Wednesday night game. I didn't muscle out John Miller, who was our main announcer. I was doing the number 2 games at that time, the Wednesday game. That's the night it happened to occur. Had there been a rain out in May, it might not have occurred on a Wednesday, but we did the game. I get goosebumps talking about it because I could tell a lot of stories, but when the 2-1-3-1 went up on that warehouse in right field, Gehrig was 21-30. We knew that number like we knew 7-14, right? Babe Ruth. When that came down, when the game was official in the 5th inning, when California, the Angels, they were behind and they had batted for the 5th time. And then, Cal started taking unscripted the lap around the stadium. We were either smart enough or overcome with emotion enough, a ton, I still am, to say nothing for 23 minutes. Now, that doesn't make me a great... Funny, we win an Emmy. We're supposed to win an Emmy by speaking. We won an Emmy by saying nothing. So I think there's a message in there. But as far as what the night meant, and you guys remember, for baseball for America, you go to work, you pack a lunch, you don't call in sick, and you do the best you can. Even if you're 0 for 5 and you make 2 errors, you show up. And it was, wow. I mean, I could get President Clinton did an inning with us. He wanted a nickname, by the way. I said, listen, Mr. I had never met him till he sat down. I mean, I said, listen, Mr. President. I didn't say, listen. I said, I might have a couple, but I think I needed to run it past a few people first. So I'll abstain for that question, but which he appreciated and laughed. But, I mean, that was Joe DiMaggio was in the park representing Lou Gehrig. They were teammates for a year and a half. And he spoke after and he said, if my teammate were alive tonight, he would applaud this. Whoa. So that would be, I mean, all the Super Bowls, I could rattle off a ton of them. The Patriots involved with a ton of them. But that would be one. And you guys remember that game. How about you, Bob and Mike? Go for it.
Go ahead, Lynchy.
Well,
must be maybe Harvard beat Yale, something like that, right?
I was born, grew up in Swampscott, right up the road from Boston. And I went to the very first Patriots game against the Denver Broncos in 1960. I was 7 years old. And I watched every game they played. And I said, one thing I'm never going to see in my lifetime is the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And when they beat the Dolphins, which they couldn't do for about 20 years in Miami in the Orange Bowl, in January of 1986, I just stood there, and Jack Edwards was working with us. He says, Lynchy, what's the matter with you? I said, I can't believe the Patriots are going to the effing Super Bowl. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime. And people say, well, was it Adam Vinatieri? Was it this moment, that moment, Michael Ruzioni? And I said, no. I said, I saw the Patriots win the AFC Championship, and I didn't really care what happened in the Super Bowl. And that really that gave me goosebumps, that moment right there.
I would say that, that'd be close to that, Lynchy, as well. And of course, Chris, a lot of this stuff is local. And then I think the 1980, this is a secondary thing before I tell you what the first one was. The 1980 Olympic team was the most influential event that I can ever remember not on just here, not on hockey, but the whole country for different reasons. That to me was a game changer for so many different reasons. That 1980 Olympic team and the 4 Bostonians that were a part of it. But personally, and there've been so many, like you said, there's just so many. You can rattle off. You're so fortunate to have even. You talk about these people. It's like you're name dropping. Well, I'm not name dropping. It's what I did for a living. I don't want to tell you I played golf with Ted Williams, but I did. I don't want to tell you I played golf with Orr, Fisk, or Dwight Evans, but I did. But I'm name dropping. But you know what? You asked me these things, but it was the time when Yaz, his last game at Fenway Park, when he ran around and touched the fans. To me, that was. I just had never seen anything like that or felt anything like that. To me, that was amazing because of the type of person that he was, that he would just open up like that and allow that many people in, because he didn't allow a lot of stuff in, at least that we saw. So that would have been mine, Chris. But it's these things become deeply personal. The Cal Ripken night, deeply personal, and this was for me. And I totally agree with Mike. We're not name dropping. Didn't meet President Clinton because of the fact you were Chris Berman. It was your job. I met Bill Clinton. But stop name dropping. I'm sorry, I'm not name dropping. It's kind of what I did. It came to me. I didn't come to it. So that's that.
So the Super Bowl that the Patriots beat the Rams to move it forward from 85, Mike.
Yeah.
Because we did prime time after the game, we were allowed on the field the last 5-10 minutes. And I'm standing under the goalpost in New Orleans where, the Patriots, Vinatieri's lining up for the field goal. Wasn't snowing like Foxborough, which was unbelievable, but we were under the goalpost. Okay, I'm standing with Steve Young, who was not that far in the past an MVP of a previous Super Bowl. He's working with us now. And the ball lands bounces within 2-3 yards of where we're standing. And it was good. We're under the goalpost, not with the official, but pretty close. And I look at him and I say, did we just see the Patriots, the greatest show on turf, beat them on a Vinatieri field goal as 14-point underdogs? And we looked at each other like, wow, the ball landed right here. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have some video after the game. It was Zolak and myself had a chance to talk to you after the game. Jim Burke, I don't know if he wants to put it up or not, but
Well, that's it, Chris. I'm sorry. Chris Berman, ESPN. He says, "You guys on for a half hour?" No, I says, "When we win championships, we stay on all night." I know.
Let me tell you something.
They did 20 to 17. I said,
You know what?
He asked me, "Does
Every
Bledsoe
time,
play?" I say, "No."
You know, I was a young guy starting out in this business, and he was big in Boston. And I keep thinking I'm going to creep past you, and then you lay a 20 to 17 on me. I'm the Swami, but you just
You're the
dwarfed
Swami.
me.
No, you'll always be the
That was wow.
What a game.
You know, Bucky Dent gone. Bill Buckner gone.
Right.
Ben Dreith gone 2 weeks ago against Oakland. That was a swamp right there. So all this is gone. The Boston D party. I mean, you keep rolling. I'm just, what a ball game. I mean, I stood right under the uprights when it went through. Steve Young, actually, we were on the field waiting to get on his feet.
Name drop.
No. He's listen.
I know.
It's a stand of the uprights. There might be a little history here, and but that little did I know that you already called it.
No.
So I mean,
No, it's fine.
you didn't
That's
need
not-
to stand under the uprights.
But I can't. As you know,
You
it's been
and
a stunt.
Vinatieri,
Please.
icons forever now.
Wow.
Wow, it's right.
Nice job. Through the beauty of technology, we have it. I love it.
Isn't that amazing? That was amazing.
And you know, and we kept Zolak quiet.
Not an easy thing to do.
Wow. Look at how young we were. Well,
Yeah,
well.
that too. But what's the feedback, Lynchy?
No,
you know what?
Now it's working.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute the phone, but I'm going to leave it up. You hearing me?
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Why don't I
right,
just
well.
let me just do a commercial here while you guys figure this out, okay?
I'm going to hang up, Lynchy. Here's what I'm going to do. Now's it work?
Yeah.
I know. Don't ask. Don't tell.
Don't ask. Don't touch anything.
Okay.
Don't touch anything.
Let me do the commercial, and we'll just
Okay.
reset.
Oh my God.
Now, Chris, I don't know if I don't know if you've ever had time to do camping. You might strike me as a camper, but you might be. I mean, you don't have an RV or a camper.
No. I like running water.
I understand. Well, you know what? We like running out. That's the difference, because camping gives you freedom. And if you drove into a campground and you met somebody and she was destined to be the next Mrs., then it turned out she wasn't, then you can run out. So it's like running water, run out. Camping gives you freedom. So now's the time to see a fantastic selection of freedom. Travel trailers, fifth wheelers, park models, pop-ups, and motorhomes at Cold Springs RV, or freely browse in a pressure-free environment. And we tell you, find the RV of your dreams. It means all about freedom. Absolutely. You can't buy freedom, but you can at Cold Springs RV. Doors are open, and so you and your family can shop with ease. Tell them Lobel and Lynch sent you, and you can make this summer a summer to remember with a camper from Cold Springs RV. Our pressure-free dealer, Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire. Where? It's just west of Goffstown, which of course is named for the quarterback of the Lions, and then north of Tingsboro and kind of northwest of Nashua. So there you go. Pressure-free Cold Springs RV. Learn more online at coldspringsrv.com. And I know it's not Nutrisystems. I know it's not CarShield. God forbid you could ever get a commercial from CarShield. But
Well,
you were in them, and you were in. I was, Nutrisystems and CarShield. Pretty cool stuff.
yeah, well, the Bud Bowl was kind of. Now you remember those, right?
Yeah.
Budway Joe and the freezer instead of the fridge. That was another time too.
That's right. Like, Lynchy's got a question for you, Chris.
So following up with our sponsor here, Cold Springs RV. Since we don't pay our guests, shocker.
No, they don't pay the hosts, so don't worry about it.
So they're going to build this Lobel Lynchy cruiser, which is going to surpass the Madden cruiser as the next great cruise thing to take cross country for those. So we're going to give you the Lobel Lynchy cruiser to use for a week, 7 days. You get to drive cross country. The only deal is you have to pick one person. It can be alive. The person can be deceased. It can be past, present. Somebody to ride shotgun with you, have a conversation with you for 7 days across the country. Who would it be?
Ooh,
Yeah, ooh, it's right, because you got a lot to
Well, you're allowing deceased, so now we're bringing in
Yeah.
Babe Ruth. We're bringing in Jackie Gleason.
Yeah.
We're bringing in
Winston Churchill, like Bill Burry picked
yeah.
Winston
We could
Churchill.
bring in you guys. We're bringing in
Yeah, well,
yeah. Well, wow. 1 week. Madden wouldn't be bad either.
Yeah.
I know all these guys are past. Oh, whew.
there you go.
Well, those are good. Those well.
It's yours, Chris. This is your choice.
Well, if I'm riding a week, I need to laugh, right? So I go back to Jackie Gleason. We're dating, we're dating ourselves.
No, we're not. No, we're not here.
I would be sneaking in the back because I would want to be in that conversation.
Well, I don't. Yeah, yeah. And away we go. Yeah,
To the moon, Alice, right to the
well,
moon.
and Jackie I'd have to drive the whole time because he might have had a nip or two,
But he's a bus. Ralph Cramden's a bus driver.
That very good. I wouldn't even think of that. But if he's, you never knew what he had in that coffee cup on the Jackie Gleason. Good night, Art Carney. Good night, everybody. So, you'd need someone to make you laugh for the whole time. So I would go there, but I mean, alive would be I wouldn't want anybody to commit to a week with me. We'd have to have somebody deceased. Okay.
Good one. That's a great choice.
How sweet it is.
Yeah. Well, no, and listen, I can't wait to see what they create. The Lobel Lynchy cruiser. I mean,
Yeah, we've been waiting a long time
we're
too.
Talking,
Yeah,
we're talking some miles going up to the White or the Green Mountains or something,
Hey, look, Boomer, if you weren't doing this, what can you imagine yourself doing if you weren't
wow.
for 50 years?
Well, you already stumped me on the cruiser.
Yeah. Harvard guys stump Brown guys all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that is so bad. That is just
No, Bob. They think we're offended by that. We're not. That's Harvard. Typical Harvard.
Kent State checking in here, okay? Kent State.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother, right?
It is absolutely.
Did you know Bob Lobel? But Boomer will tell you this: the visiting football Boomer, you were probably up in the booth calling the game. But the visiting football team dressed in a place called Marvel Gym, right, Chris?
Yeah.
And it was across the street from the
Correct.
football field. So I think it might have been my senior year. Joe Restick did not like John Anderson, the new Brown coach. He just didn't like Bob Bateman came in as their quarterback. And so he held up the Providence Journal, which said, this is the year, Brown wins the Ivy League championship. And Restick was so pissed, he crumpled it up and threw it on the ground. And we went charging out the door of the gym. The problem was there were cars coming left and right. So we had to stop, and like here comes 60 guys with probably a little metal tipped on the tips of their cleats, trying to stop on asphalt. Guys are falling left and right. Cars' horns are beeping, and like all the hide that we had coming out that locker room door went pew, just like that. We waited for the cop to stop the traffic so we could walk across the street.
Trump would have probably had Teslas lined up right in front of the park right there. You never would have got to the game. You'd have forfeited the game.
That's first of all, that's hilarious. Listen, in Providence, we get things done. Don't ask how, but we're going to stop Harvard today. Damn it, we're going to not let them cross the street. You know why? And I don't know why Joe Restick, because Anderson was new. And we were always a laughing stock, and all of a sudden Brown was a force the next year, actually. So that game would have been with Bateman, 75, right?
Yeah. And you know
Next
that
year-
game. That game was broadcast on ABC
Yes.
by Keith Jackson and Bud Wilkinson,
Yes.
with Don Tollison doing the sideline.
And Jim Lampley hosting. I think they all were there.
Yeah.
It might have. Yes, that was. Yeah,
Wow.
that went as far south as Washington, D.C., and we laid an egg. It killed us. But the next year, when we won our first Ivy title,
Yeah.
that was at Harvard Stadium, not the last game of the year. We were big underdogs, and we won. And okay, you're going to have me tell a story now. Now, I didn't play. I announced, but I roomed with 3 players, so I mean, I knew more than I ever knew in my 45 years at ESPN. I mean, what didn't I know, right? So that game we won 16. We were up 16-7. Then I think Tommy Wynn had a long run for Harvard, but I think it was 16-14. We ended up winning the title a couple games later. The only press, I can't believe I'm telling this, but I'm 70 now. I can tell this stuff. The only press box altercation that I ever had in my career, there were two Harvard, whether they were the announcers or the Harvard Crimson reporter. We're leaving and we're carrying our equipment, back in those days, right? And the 2 of them look at me and they went, "Brown was freaking lucky." Oh, really? And there were no punches thrown, but I was bigger than these 2 guys from Harvard. And I backed them up against the wall. I said, "Excuse me." And they went, "All right, you guys deserve to win." I said, "Very smart. You guys are smart at Harvard." And although it pains me to say it, so my press box altercation, or close, it wasn't even 2 minutes for roughing, but they could have. The linesman skated in. I'm 1-0. Thanks to that 1976 altercation at Harvard Stadium. I never had another one. So not as funny as 60 guys putting on the brakes. Hey, by the way, was Cianci mayor then? See?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
the plot's thickening, okay? Very funny.
Who were some of your broadcasting heroes as a kid growing up? Who did you like or try to emulate?
Well,
I mean, they did have television then, right?
yeah, it was black and white.
Okay.
The first 2 names, well, the first one is Kurt Gowdy.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, no stranger to longtime Boston, but I mean, Kurt Gowdy had a way of making every event not sound important, but not overly so. But he had a friendly voice, but a commanding voice at the same time. Maybe that was because he's from Wyoming originally, and he brought you in without commanding you to watch, but you didn't want to leave, the game of the way. I mean, he did every sport. First of all, voice of the AFL. And so I grew up at Shea Stadium. I can't believe the phone's ringing, but just go with it. I grew up at Shea Stadium watching Namath. Okay, so I wasn't at the first. Dad got season tickets in '64 when it opened up, and I was 9. So it's similar to you go to the first, Patriots game at Fenway or wherever. The first game was wherever, BU. So I'm an AFL guy, so that already endeared him to me. But game of the week, baseball, he did everything, and I just felt watching Kurt Gowdy, I was comfortable at any age. Oh my God!
Take it. It
You know
might
what
be a
happens
job
when you have a
offer.
landline? They think you're old, and they're selling you something at 2:00 in the afternoon. So it'll stop any minute now. Jesus. Ray Scott would be another old time, because as brief as Pat Summerall was, and of course Pat was great and became a friend. We share the same birthday. He was a little older. Ray Scott said less. He was the classic 3rd and 12 star Horning, first down. And I admired that as someone who's pretty verbose. Like, damn, I know everything I need to know. He let the pictures tell it. Now, here's a name that you might, I don't know if you'll be surprised, but all of us regard ourselves as pretty good at doing highlights. You know, I had longer form and it was a different art form just because I had 5 and 7 minute highlights sometimes, except maybe in your weekend wrap up shows. You know, I could do different things because it wasn't 40 seconds and you got to move on, right? The difference of local or Sports Center. But Warner Wolf, when Warner Wolf did highlights in New York, Washington, and New York. I'm not talking Warner that went on to ABC. He would find a clip from an out-of-town game in New York, unheard of. Want to see a catch in the Mariners game? Let's go to the videotape. You'd get one look at whoever did it, and he'd get it, and he'd put it on, even though it was New York and Seattle was playing Kansas City. Oh, okay. You can go national a little, even and you guys did it too, but I just found that I really was impressed with his highlights and credit some of my highlight ability to watching him. So those are 3 names. How about you guys?
Definitely Gowdy. Jim McKay, great broadcaster, great writer, and like Gowdy, did basically everything for the network. You know, started at the Baltimore Sun and then got a job in New York and never left. And current day, I'd have to say Jim Nance.
Wonderful guy.
And Chris Berman. I'm sorry.
Nah.
But
what about you, Bob?
You know, I think it would be a combination of all of them. I love Gowdy. I love Johnny Most. I worked with Johnny Most. I know that sounds, he was an anathema. He was really off the charts. He was really anything but your prototypical sports play-by-play guy. But there was something about his connection to the local fans that endeared him to the local fans. And there was something about that. I got to tell you, Chris, you and I was in Washington, D.C., where I first got out of graduate school at UVM. And I worked for a national fraternity, and Warner Wolf was on TV in Washington. And I looked at that. I watched him on TV, having never done any broadcasting before, and I said, I could do that. I could be the Boo of the Week. I could do that. I could give him a Lobel Prize. I could come up. That was the kind of stuff. But then there was the Ray Scotts, the Summeralls. Everybody had something else to offer. And it's really interesting because there's just so many different styles that you can pick from. And even Nance drives me crazy to see Nance on golfing events because I turned down the job and he took it at CBS. Swear to God, I can't make this up. But I stayed in Boston and didn't go to the network, which I don't regret at all, except during the NCAA basketball tournament and the Masters. Those are the two weeks, except he doesn't do the basketball anymore. But I think he's great. And I think the guy that these guys work with, the color guys, are so important to their styles, whether it was DeRogatis with Gowdy, or whether it was Summerall, or Madden. These guys were so important to the success of their play-by-play partners and how they worked together. As you know, how they synced up together, it made a team and it made each of them better. So I'll shut up with that.
No. Here's another name that I know we'll all nod on because I told them this once. Jack Whitaker. I said, Jack, if I can use the English language as 1/3 as well as you do, my mom and dad will be pretty damn proud of me. He really smiled on that one. I meant it too, obviously.
Hey, and Chris, it was Ned Martin. It was Bob Prince. I mean, with the Pittsburgh Twins, with their Possum, and those guys that were just fantastic. Jimmy Dudley in Cleveland. I mean, I can go on and on, but the guys you remember. I can't even remember my names of my cousins. I can remember the names of these sportscasters.
Right. I agree.
Hey, Boomer, did your parents ever say to you at the very beginning of your career, we sent you to Brown University to read scores on the weekend?
Well, they were very supportive of whatever I was doing. I mean, that's the stock thing to say. It's a good question, Mike. My dad, maybe my first job was on radio for a year in Westerly, Rhode Island. Okay, and then I went to Waterbury, and then with Channel 30, Hartford, and then ESPN. But so I'm in Westerly, and he goes, Chris, or maybe he said it before I took the job like a week before I graduated, and I started 2 days later, right down the road from after Brown graduation in '77. He goes, you sure, just in case this broadcast thing doesn't work out, you want to go to maybe the business school or something? And I said, no, Dad, I think I got to give this a shot, and I don't know whether it was a graduation or maybe a year while I'm in Westerly, Rhode Island, making our inevitable $125 a week with Tuesdays off, in a beach town in the summer, and then everybody leaves and you're wondering, what the hell am I doing here? But I said, no, Dad, I owe it to myself to see if I can be good enough. And I'll know. I don't know what that means. I think I'll know eventually if I'm kidding myself or not. And he was not he enjoyed taking his sons to Jets AFL games and to baseball, but he was not a sports fanatic. I think he got more enjoyment out of watching my younger brother and I smile at these games. And he said, okay, then be great at it. That's the only thing. It's one of the few things my soft-spoken, but great guy dad said to me, as if I just be great at it then. And he never brought it up again. And I don't know if I'm great at it, but I made a living at it. That's
Well,
a good question.
you did not disappoint him or us. Trust me.
Well, thank you.
Not at all.
Second that.
I mean, we're, what are we, in the 10 or 15% of the people, and I'm just picking a number, that got to do really what we love. Not that there might not have been another thing or two that we might have loved or folks out of their love, but to get up each day and to do what we do or still doing, that's a dream come true, isn't it? We're just lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lucky. I'm sure all of us at one time or another would have stood at a Super Bowl or a World Series and just looked around and said, holy crap, I can't believe I'm actually standing here. You say it silently to yourself. You think it. And I know all of us have done that at one time or another.
Well, it's the one thing that makes us forget that life is the toughest game you're ever going to play.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys have these stories too, and talking with two veterans who've been at it as long or longer than me, and who both I watched and learned from and become friends with, as this show proven that I really good friend of mine and we all know doctors that do things that are really important, right? He's an internist. I mean, he's retired now. But he said, what you do, Chris, on Sunday nights, he was saying on NFL Primetime with Tom Jackson, that's important. I said, whoa, time out. You open Monday at 7 a.m. You're opening up somebody, for lack of another term. I don't know if you're saving their life, but maybe you are. That would be important. And his name was Bob. And he goes, no, but don't you understand? On Sundays, when we watch football in the New York area, so I think he was the Giants, but neither here nor there, doesn't matter. We get to take a break from that, and maybe it makes us better operating on Monday morning. So what you do is important, and I never forgot that. Like, okay, different, maybe not capitalized important, but if we're giving somebody like that a break from serious stuff, then maybe we've really done okay at our jobs, right? I know you guys probably have similar stories to that.
Yeah. We all have, and it does put it into perspective. But we're lucky. I mean, I'm sure all three of us have this same feeling. I never dreaded going into work, not one single day in 39 years at WCVB. Never, not one day that I say, it's only Tuesday. I just couldn't wait to get going because, every day was the only thing that was same was the time you were on the air, but every day was different. Every day was absolutely 1,000% different than the day before.
Lynchy, I told you I would have watched you every night, but I was working. Okay. Chris, individual athletes. I mean, we've all met a ton of them, but there has to be one or two that stand out. Now, this is not a comparison. This is not you're the best and you're the worst. It's like which is better, Dr. J or Larry Bird? Well, because you pick one doesn't make the other second. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I pick Larry Bird. Well, that doesn't mean Dr. J's. That's just you asked me the question. So, is there one maybe that stands out that you would give an A+ recommend? I don't know how else to phrase it.
Well,
Favorites. One of your that you are friends. Just you know what I'm saying.
yes. So two guys who I was fortunate enough to, and I'll have another one after that. Two guys who I was fortunate enough to meet and become friends with after they were my heroes. So now I'm going to give that part of the answer. I became pretty friendly with Willie Mays. Okay, and I'm not just saying that. Again, name drop. You covered that beautifully before. I'm a San Francisco Giant fan above everything. Why? Growing up in Connecticut, I was 7. They were in the World Series. It was 1962. My father told me there was some guy on the Giants that's a really good player, and you're a 7-year-old Giants. Like they play
Chris,
the Yankees.
my father was a fabulous Giants fan and lived in New York and was a fabulous Willie Mays fan. And one time I got to interview him, I said my father would have been so thrilled to know that I was. But so okay.
Well, no. So Willie, I became friends. I went to his memorial last year. The family invited me. Again, it sounds like I'm named, but because I was a Giant, because you're 7-year-old, ooh, Giants. I'm going to root for them, right? By the way, try getting scores in the 60s until 2 days later, newspaper. Giants had Dodgers night game, right?
First game I ever saw, Chris, was in the Polo Grounds.
Was it? Well,
first game he ever took, Whitey Lockman I remember hit a home run in the Polo Grounds.
That's awesome. I went to one game there. It was the Mets. I'm a little younger. So the Mets played 2 years there, 63, but it was the Giants. And the Giants won 17-4. I mean, so I remember this, right? I was 8 years, my 8-year-old birthday party. So I was there once with the 475, 483 in dead center. The other guy, and Willie, I told him this, and I'm sure I'm one of many, but Willie, you're the reason I'm doing this. And I told, as I got friends with Joe Namath, now that's real. First time I met Joe was in the 80s, a year or two, he was doing Monday Night Football, and he has a smile on his face. As you know, you met Joe, he's a wonderful person. And he said, Chris Berman, I feel like I've watched you all my life. I said, whoa, time out, Joe. Time out. I said, if you played 70 games, 75 games at Shea Stadium, I was at 68 of them. He goes, what? And I brought up a couple games. He goes, no one has brought that game up. Not the touchdown pass to Don Maynard in the championship game, of course, but like a game, he threw a jump pass when he'd only had one knee operation by that point. He goes, you remember that? I said, Joe, my mind wasn't cluttered then. So at any rate, and we've become great friends. So those are and I've told him I do the football because of my years watching in the upper deck at Shea Stadium for $8 a seat in box seats in the 60s. So, but now we've all become very friendly with people that I'm going to say Jim Kelly, Buffalo Bills. Okay. how I became tight with that whole team that made 4 straight Super Bowls, hasn't happened before, won't happen again. Well, although the Chiefs have been in 3 straight, but you know what I'm saying. So it could actually. And lost them, but had enough gumption. I was young 30s. They were 20s and young 30s. It's a time when you're not a jock sniffer, but the media wasn't, better not talk to them. You guys lived it. A different time if you were the right sort. No, you're going out with us. Okay. And it's as simple as that. And I could call about 12 of that team right now. But Jim and I, there's a guy that we're lucky that he is as tough as he is, because what he's gone through, losing a child, cancer here. Yeah. This doctor told me, I've never met anybody. This stuff, when they have to operate there, you feel it doesn't matter what Novocaine or what it's nothing more painful to operate on than is your gums if you have to go in 3-4 times, etc. So again, his story isn't unique. And also the pain of losing, that's secondary to the health and losing a son young. That would be a guy that this business allowed me to remain very close with every member of their family, and he with mine, and I'm sure you have similar stories.
Yeah. No, but that's cool. That's really interesting. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Let me get one more spot in here, Boomer, before we let you go. This is about hey, if you're thinking about a new vehicle, go where Lobel and Lynch go. Go see our good friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. We have been customers for years because we know that George Gray will treat you right. They're a family-owned and operated dealership that we trust, and you can trust as well. Go see the big wheel, we call him, George Gray, the great George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. And I know that George Gray is a big fan of yours, Boomer. And when he's not still celebrating the 250th anniversary, by the way, of the battle.
Still shooting blanks.
Listen, they didn't fire till they saw the whites in their eyes.
I know, that's what they say. Yeah, right.
Thank God, right? The tea was already dumped. So, all right, I'll go see him when I can. I promise.
Well, Boom, this is great. Can't thank you enough. And you've been, one thing that's so nice, like, you're on the national network. Everybody in the world knows you. Yet you're so approachable, and you're just the same guy that was, sitting in the upper deck at Shea Stadium, the same guy that was calling the Brown University games, and I think that's a credit. And I always say good parenting, but that's probably where it all started. But good for you, and couldn't be more thrilled and pleased that we got together with you today. This was awesome.
Plus, we got the audio working, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, in fact, you need to know that you need to know that you've created a new segment for us that we can put up a sign that says technical difficulties. We'll be back in a moment.
We'll be back. Thank God the phone lines work. Well, listen, thank you. Well, first of all, 2 of my guys that I completely respect. We're all survivors in this business. And we're lucky to be that. But listen, I'm not, and you could answer the same way because you guys are the same guy I saw on TV. I'm not smart enough to be an actor or an actress, obviously. I'm not, if you're on TV every day, it doesn't matter local, but, Monday to Friday, Sunday, highlight, basically every day. And me, I was on every day for a long time. If you're an actor and you're trying to be somebody else, that will show A, on the air eventually, B, in person pretty quickly. So not everybody likes the same flavor of ice cream. That's the way it is. But I think I take to heart what you say. Mike, what you just said, and Bob, I know you're the same way here. You know what? It's not that hard to. You need to be yourself.
Yeah, man.
And
Good one.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you remind me of Timothy Chalamet, but other than that, that's fine.
Well, and also, and you guys know this, we all have a bad day, right? But at what point in our careers, when you're on the street or outside a ballpark or just in the supermarket or whatever, in the Boston area, or really nationwide now, I mean, which is kind of cool, but at the same time, it takes the same 30 seconds to be nice as it does to be an ass. Yeah. Now, every now and then, they're number 40 in line, and you got to go. I can't sign this. Where are the 8-year-olds? Let me take care of them, and I'm going to go. But it's just 30 seconds either way. Why wouldn't you choose nice? Why wouldn't you? Right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, you made the choice, and we're glad you did, and we're glad you were able to give us your time, and I love you.
Well, I love you too. You guys have been through hell too, and you've given a lot of. You stand for a lot of things, and people in the Boston area. But the most important thing you stand for is you put a smile on people's faces, and you still do. And even though this is a face maybe a dartboard would love. We'll do this again. I really enjoyed it. I really was looking forward to this. And,
hold on a second. Yeah, I think I love him. I do love that face.
Nobody said you were never prepared. You always had technical difficulties. The show goes on. Here's a dartboard. You know what?
Oh, look at this.
Oh God.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, you know what? The thing, we used to draw blood pinning that on our jacket, too. We had to wear that early. I think I still have one in a drawer somewhere. I don't know where.
All right. Keep this in mind, Chris. I love you.
Well, love you too, pal. Love you too.
You're the best. Thanks so much.
See you around the block. Chris Berman, everybody, the best, none better. And don't forget to follow us on unanchoredboston.com.